dumbs down aspirations. And I think that is the most disastrous prospect for young people. Having worked in the private industry to try and encourage young people to raise aspirations, you do it by encouraging people, by incentivising, by taking an interest, by designing courses suitable for them, as well as the employer. But segregation, social segregation, will be disastrous. It will help a low-skill economy, and it will help a low-achieving economy. It's economically bad for business, and when speakers say we need to have a coalition, I agree with Councillor Small, we should have a coalition. We should have a coalition of teaching unions. We should have a coalition for all the political parties. I think you'll find that many Conservative councils equally horrified, because this was never in the Conservative Party manifesto. It has no democratic mandate, because even the Conservative Party has no national authority. But I also suggest we should also speak to the employers, the small businesses and the CPI, because this is a recipe for a low-skill economy.
Councillor Pamton, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Things have changed since I went to school. 11-year-old children are no longer sorted according to how they perform in the test. The 11 plus severely limited the life chances of those who failed. How children perform on the day is affected by their circumstances. The 11 plus produced flawed data from which assumptions were made, conclusions drawn and judgments given. For me, it was because I was a disabled child. I was in Alderhay Hospital a lot and missed chunks of my primary education and the practice sessions other children had. I failed the 11 plus, judged to be of low ability and sent to a secondary modern school for girls. I was luckier than many other disabled children were sent to segregated special schools which limit life chances even more. At secondary modern, we were taught to not have ideas above our station or even think about O-levels. That was for clever people, and we were not clever. If any girl showed signs of not conforming to low expectations, others would remark, I don't know who she thinks she is. Ambition was always stifled. However, I was taught how to clean, starch, correctly fold, and iron cotton handkerchiefs for my husband-to-be. Honestly, I don't use that much. After I left school, I noticed that there were people with A levels who did not seem to be cleverer than me. So I went to night classes at Millbank College and got 2 A levels. When I was 31, I was in full-time work and had 2 small children. I was dealing with all the disabling barriers that I deal with to this day. I realised that there were people with degrees who were getting opportunities that were denied me, yet they didn't seem to be cleverer than me. So to get a degree, I went to John Moores University 2 nights a week for 5 years and spent Sundays writing essays. I went on to get an MA at 41 and a PhD at 51. I finally proved that I'd been wrongly judged. It took me a long time, and I can never go back to show the teachers that they were wrong. I could never have the same opportunities I would have had if I'd gone to a comprehensive school. And with millions of others, I will never get the justice of the life-limiting judgments that were made so early in my life. But we must remember that school is not just about academic ability and achievement. It is at least as important to have a sense of belonging, friendships and social networks. Being left out is harmful and causes long-lasting damage to well-being and life chances. It's also important that children who are not academically inclined receive the best education to excel in whatever it is they are good at. Lord Mayor, I know you understand the devastating effect selection has on children. We're the same age, and I know your experience is in many ways similar to mine. This Tory government is taking us back to an unjust, bygone age in so many areas. They want segregation, where if you get the chance to do well and the rest are relegated to an inferior route. We must ensure that all children know that they belong and are not rejected. Every single one must get the chance early in life to develop to their full potential, whatever that is. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can't match that performance at County Thomas. That was really moving, thank you. I'll just speak very briefly in favour of the motion. Grammar schools, expanding grammar schools is clearly the wrong direction. The Greens believe that rather than creating new grammar schools, the current existing ones, should be reintegrated into the comprehensive system. This policy of bringing back grammar schools has got nothing to do with improving standards. Anybody who works in education, who understands education, can tell you that the evidence does not support selection, does not support grammar schools. This is just due-eyed nostalgia from Conservative Party members, many of whom went to grammar schools themselves. It's a terrible policy, and whilst we'd like to go further than just preventing new grammar schools, we will be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Craig. Councillor Royden.
Lord Mayor, colleagues, council. To quote Gary, I wasn't going to speak on this, but I'm of an age where I remember grammar schools, looking around the council chamber, a lot of good young members, but they never had to go through that system. It wasn't just at 10 years of age that the difference was, and all you had to do was watch that programme last night, which was, I think it was Minority Reports, where a lot of people in Trafford, where they've got 4 grammar schools, were talking about not just putting their children through the system, but having the ability to have tutors. They openly admitted they weren't happy with the grammar system, but they wanted to do the best for the children. So they'd spent, some of them, literally thousands and thousands of pounds, which they can afford. So we've already got a selective system within our primary system before we even talk about the grammar school. I went to school in Everton, a place called Bratton Road, which then ended up as a social services place, which usually did with our schools once we'd finished with them. But I then took my 11 plus at 10. I've passed, but with my colleagues and friends, I refused to go to the grammar school because there was no way I was going to be seen with that stupid little cap on, because my mates would have beat me up. And seriously, it's that simple where we came from. So eventually, I also went to university, but I ended up when I was 40, so I knew I was capable, as those around those children there. So we're talking about children developing not then, but at early ages. So we brought something along as a stop called the 13 plus. Not one individual in the school I went to, and that was then called Bennett Street. The council in its wisdom changed it. It then called it Breckfield Secondary Modern, because no longer Bennett Street, where the cannon fodder for the factories and the army went to. It was going to be a good place, so we called it Secondary Modern. Those teachers at that school were of a low standard. Those teachers in that school received, as I know now, less pay than those in the grammar school. And it was brought to them where it wasn't a private school, the grammar school, it was a part of our system, but they received better pay. So the teachers that they were the failures. They were, some of them were left around a twist, to be blunt about it. But that was the system that was there, because it didn't really matter. Because we weren't destined for anything other than the factory, or the building site, or to join the armed forces. And that, I believe, is where this government want to take us back to. It frightens the life out of me. We cannot select children at 10 years of age or 13 years of age. They develop throughout their whole lives. As I said before, I went to university at 14, got my degree. So I oppose this. I oppose with everything I've ever had, and I hope colleagues will go along with it. It's going to be a fight, and we must make sure they don't turn the clock back. Thank you, Chair.
Right, okay, all speakers. Nick, do you want to finish up the debate?
Just very quickly, Lord Mayor, I think this debate is a better debate for hearing some of the personal experiences from Councillor Thomas, from Councillor Gladden, from Councillor Radford, because this is, for many people, a very personal experience that they had from this. Someone wrote a letter in the Echo yesterday accusing me wrongly of hypocrisy, saying that wrongly I'd gone to a fee-paying school. I didn't, Lord Mayor. I'm very proud that I went to my local comprehensive school. I'm very proud that I got an excellent education with a diverse group of children. The education I got was better because of the diversity, with teachers who were excellent, who were committed to giving a good quality education for everybody. That's what we should aspire for every child in this city, and that's why we should all get behind this motion, and we should all build that campaign against these plans.
17, challenging the government to review unfair and unjust austerity measures imposed on Liverpool by Councillors Joann Kushner and Peter Mitchell. Councillor Kushner, are you going to move this, yeah?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor, my name. My Lord Mayor, when I began writing this speech, I thought about the word austerity and how I should write things that wouldn't repeat what had already been said or wrote before. And I'm thinking like that because when you mention the word austerity outside of this chamber, people have begun to roll their eyes like it's some sort of cliche or excuse for not being able to provide what we once did, or that it was actually Liverpool City Council who introduced it in the first place. I'm very uncomfortable with the way this country has accepted the fact that these policies are necessary when we're told on a daily basis that they're not. And through this motion, I want to ask this chamber to support us to take the fight back to number 10, to challenge the injustice of the cuts imposed on this city and give us our money back. I want to do this because as elected representatives, it is our responsibility to the people of this city to ensure that this injustice does not go unchallenged. It's our responsibility to shout at the effects austerity is having on our most vulnerable, the ones who've already been mentioned by Councillor Corbett's motion around food poverty, those who are experiencing in-work poverty, those who've lost their jobs through service cuts, those suffering through benefit sanctions, the disabled, and my future worry about those who've been supported through our council tax support scheme and who next year are at risk of losing it. After thinking about all of this, I realised that I didn't have to tell the story any differently to make the arguments. I just had to repeat what has already been said again and again and again until it is listened to, acted upon and buried once and for all. In 2015, Nobel laureate and US economist Paul Krugman said this about austerity. I don't know how many Britons realise the extent of which their economic debate has diverged from the rest of the Western world. The extent to which the UK seems so stuck on obsessions that have been mainly laughed out of the discourse elsewhere. That was in 2015. On the 1st of July in 2016, Theresa May's speech signalled that George Osborne's fiscal rule to produce a budget surplus by 2020 was for the Treasury shredding machine. We should no longer seek to reach a budget surplus by the end of Parliament, she said. The Chancellor agreed with her, arguing that the government must be realistic about its fiscal targets and that austerity policies could be eased. Leading economists, journalists, the IMF, the US, the UN have all called these policies out for what they are, yet there's been no change, and the cuts and the belt just keeps on getting pulled tighter, and vulnerable people in our communities are paying the price for the unnecessary attacks on the state as the policies go unchallenged. The United Nations has expressed serious concern about the impact of regressive policies on the enjoyment of economic and social rights, and stated that austerity has breached the UK's international human rights obligations. In a report from the Centre of Welfare Reform Committee, it states that the past 6 years of austerity has seen the UK government intentionally diminish the rights of its own citizens. The United Nations has strongly criticised the UK government for these policies that have harmed immigrants, asylum seekers, disabled people and those living in poverty. There is no good reason for these ongoing attacks. Instead, it seems likely that these groups have been targeted simply because they are convenient scapegoats for problems they did not cause. It is clear that since 2010, ministers are fully aware that their policies would hit lower income groups hardest and deepen the suffering of many already facing disadvantage without offering any long-term gain for the pain they inflicted. Simon Duffy, Director of the Centre for Welfare Reform, a member of the Just Fair Consortium, said, "We urge the government to take heed of the committee's recommendations and commit to ensuring that it does not diminish human rights further in the UK. The committee recommends that the UK reserve the cuts in social security benefits and reviews the use of sanctions, The new national living wage is not sufficient to ensure a decent standard of living and should be extended to under 25s. The UK should also take steps to reduce the use of zero-hour contracts which disproportionately affect women. In a direct criticism of Mr Cameron and Mr Osborne, Theresa May said that the government has overseen a lot of public service reform. It is striking that there has not been much deep economic reform. She said about her taking office that this is a different kind of conservatism. It will mark a break with the past because we don't just believe in markets but in communities. We don't just believe in individualism but in society. We don't hate the state. We value the role that only the state can play. We believe everybody, not just the privileged few, has a right to take ownership to what matters in their lives. Well, Theresa, what matters in the lives of vulnerable people in this city is the right to earn a decent wage, to be comfortable in the knowledge that services which intended to help with the development of their children and safety and well-being of their elderly are protected, and that they can live a life free of dependence from charitable donations to keep them warm and feed their own children. Here's a question for you to ponder. Is there a good reason why deficit obsession should still rule in Britain as it fades away everywhere else? The answer from the people of this city is no. This country is not different. The economics of austerity are the same, and the intellectual case is as bankrupt in Britain as it is everywhere else. So getting back to the beginning of the speech, I really didn't have to say anything that hasn't already been said before, because most of this, what I've said, has been put together from articles and speeches that have been made by leading economists, publications including the Financial Times, The Guardian, the IMF, the UN and the Prime Minister herself. Which is why, my Lord Mayor, I'm asking this Chamber to support this motion in its entirety and get behind the Mayor of this city to take the fight to number 10 and ensure that we take the new Prime Minister up on her offer to put this government's economic policies through the Treasury shredding machine and establish a new funding formula for this city before the new financial year.
So I think you're seconding this motion. Yeah. Okay.
I am, my Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Joann Kushner for putting the details so well. And we all know the details, as she already said. In fact, Councillor, a friend and colleague, and her husband, Councillor Barry Kushner, wrote a book a few years ago called Who Needs the Cuts? Still available, I can assure you, if anyone wants a copy, in the bargain bin basement and news from nowhere on Bold Street. My, haven't we been nice to each other tonight? Have you noticed, my Lord Mayor, haven't we been nice to each other? Everything's gone through. We've all been smiling, not been disagreeing about anything. And you all know me well, you know me well, Lord Mayor. Far be it to me to be angry about something. I've got to tell you, I'm angry tonight. I'm angry that we've had to debate a motion criticising the LGA for their spineless efforts in defending our communities. I'm angry that we've had to debate a motion about food poverty in 2016 in our great city. I'm angry. And do you know what I was thinking? 58% cuts. Councillor Kemp, for 5 years, almost every council meeting would stand up and say, your party would have cut as well. Almost every council meeting, he would say. And we don't shout back, but yes, but there was fairness, area-based grants. For those who can't remember area-based grant, my word, can you imagine what life would have been running the city if we still had area-based grant? But I wonder, Councillor Kemp, I can't recall you ever, in the 6 long years since Labour lost power, standing up in this chamber and condemning the 58% cuts to this city. If I've missed that and you've done it somewhere, I'll give way and let you stand up and condemn it right here and now.
Thank you very much. I made it very clear on a number of occasions, indeed, without particularly mentioning the 58% cuts, that I thought Liverpool had had more than its fair share of cuts. There were a number of reasons for that, but I did not defend, nor would I defend at any time, the magnitude of the cuts we faced in. But I still say that there would have been cuts irrespective of who was the government and who was the council, because that was in the last Labour government's own medium-term financial strategy.
Can I just remind you though that I am in charge of this meeting and you won't let invite anybody else to speak, will you?
Apologies, my Lord, please accept my apologies. I'm grateful for the clarification, because he still supported the coalition government for